gentlemen, welcome back, and today I bring you breaking news on the Rise of Kyoshi Chapter 3. Now, if you remember where we left off from Chapter 2, Yun had just saved Kyoshi and Rangi from being crushed by that massive jar that was flung into the air, and right before it crushed them, he stopped it with his earthbending. Now, Yun, my theory that I had at the end of Chapter 2 was that Yun, Zhangshu, Rangi, Hairan, the Earth Kingdom, everybody knew that Yun was not the legitimate avatar and that he was just a placeholder, and the only people that I had suspected did not know about Yun not being the avatar was like civilians, right? Because in Chapter 1 they were like, if we don't know who the avatar is, then all of these pirates and villains and all these like no good doers, that's a horrible term, but whatever, all these people who had evil intentions would start to rise up because they understand that there's no avatar, there's nobody there to stop them if they wanted to do something dastardly. Well, we did catch glimpses of that starting to happen, and that's why I thought that Yun being in the position that he was to deter that from ever happening any further. I was completely wrong, okay? Because in Chapter 3, we find out that Yun and everybody truly believes that he is the Avatar. So it kind of brings up questions like, okay, did the Earth Kingdom just find some random kid and start training him as the Avatar? Because even in this chapter, Zhangshu, who was originally in Chapter 1 doing the earthbending and airbending avatar test in order to find the Avatar, he truly believes that Yun is the Avatar so much that he's trying to help him overcome him not being able to master firebending. And that's what really Chapter 3 focuses around, Yun trying to learn how to firebend, and we get a massive glimpse into what the life of an avatar is like, what they have to go through training wise in order to prepare themselves for peacemaking throughout the land, okay? So basically what we understand is that Yun and everybody believes that he is the Avatar. I don't know how, because this is only Chapter 3. In Chapter 3, him and his firebending master Hairan are practicing in order for him to master firebending, in order for them to confront a pirate by the name of Tagaka. Okay, Tagaka runs this massive pirating organization, pirating front. They're called the Fifth Nation, okay? That's how massive this pirate country is. And basically, Zhangshu confronts Avatar Yun and is like, you need to master firebending because we're going to negotiate with Tagaka about where they can go and where they can't go. Tagaka has been laying siege to, I believe, the Eastern Waters, and that's right around the Eastern Air Temple, so it's very personal for them to be able to negotiate with Tagaka in order for her to stop doing what is she doing. But jumping straight into the nitty-gritty of this chapter, Avatar Yun and his firebending master Hairan are at wit's end with their training. Hairan looks at Yun and is like, yo, your form is impeccable. There's nothing wrong with his form. His form is excellent. He simply just cannot produce fire. And that has everything to do with the fact that he is not the actual Avatar, but nobody knows this, so they just think that there's something wrong with Hairan's teaching or with Yun himself. They also bring up the fact that, hey, maybe this element just isn't good for you, because Yun is an earthbender by birth. Okay, earthbenders are meant to be rooted to the ground. They're meant to have all connections with the earth, but traditionally firebenders have on like these toe shoe things. So Yun is very unreceptive to how firebenders bend, right? His form is great, keep that in mind, but Hairan can't help but mention, well, actually, let me not say that, because this is the thing about Hairan. Hairan actually was the firebender master for Avatar Karuk. So she already has experience teaching firebending to someone who's not a firebender, and furthermore, she has experience teaching firebending to an Avatar. So this is very frustrating for Yun, and it doesn't make Yun feel any better, the fact that he is not able to learn firebending. But between Yun and Hairan, this leads to frustration, but it's even more frustrating because his teacher, at some point in the chapter, tries to instigate Yun into becoming enraged in order for him to produce any flame at all. So when she tried this, she had said, I'm used to avatars just getting by on sheer talent alone and not focusing on the basics, right? The foundation of what bending means for each nation. And it states on page 42, and I'm reading this off my phone, by the way, but it was like, was she ignoring the fact that he spent sleepless nights poring over scholarly analysis of Yang Chen's political decisions? that he'd exhausted memorizing the names of every Earth Kingdom noble, Fire Nation commander, and Water Tribe chieftain among the living and back 3 generations among the dead. The forgotten texts he'd used to map the ancient sacred sites of the air nomads to such a degree that Kelsang was surprised about a few of them. That's who he was when no one was looking. Someone who dedicated his whole being to his avatarhood. Young wanted to make up for the time he had lost squandering by being discovered so late. He wanted to express gratitude to Zhang Shu and the entire world for giving him the greatest gift in existence. Taking it easy was the last thing on his mind. Like I stated earlier, she was trying to get a rouse out of Yun in order for him to produce firebending, but this only led to arguments and fighting, so much the fact that Zhang Shu had to step in and take Yun away in order for him to cool off. And that's when he started breaking down to Yun that, hey, you need to know something about Hyron. Like, she resigned from her commission in the Fire Nation army to become the master of Avatar Kuruk, and after that she had resigned from the Royal Academy in order to teach Yun. So she had given up so much for Yun for him to not bend fire. But it's like, we know the history and we know that Kyoshi is supposed to be the Avatar, so it's kind of hard to get behind Yun and Hyron, because it's like the entire time I'm reading this chapter, I'm just screaming at the motherfucker like, yo, you're not the Avatar. Why doesn't Kyoshi pop up? And that also leaves more discussion to be talked about, because if Kyoshi doesn't know earthbending, what bending does she know? But this brings up one more important part of this chapter. It's a relatively short chapter. It's very info heavy, so I wanted to break this down and make it as consumable as possible for anybody who is watching the video but also not reading it at the same time. I wanted to point out what it actually means for avatars when it comes down to it. Now, I already told you about him having to know firebender commanders, water tribe chieftains, air nomad, history and all that type of stuff, and Earth Kingdom generals. All that type of stuff is what avatars have to know. But one thing really stood out, and it was this quote, and it said, contrary to what many of the locals thought, Zhang Shu did not keep him locked up in the estate like a moonflower that would wither in too much sunlight. In between training, they would regularly take trips around the world with Kelsang on his flying bison, Pang Pang, to meet important people from around the 4 nations. The goal was to make sure Yun had a cosmopolitan upbringing, since the ideal avatar was almost a diplomat. Never showing bias to one people or another, he learned a lot by their side, exploring great cities and talking to their leaders. Sometimes he had fun. The reason I bring this up is because every avatar has to operate like this. It was never, the whole avatar journey was never just about mastering the 4 elements. It was always about meeting the different cultures, meeting the different ways of living and operating amongst the different countries and things of that nature, between the water tribe, the air nomads, the Fire Nation, and the Earth Kingdom. Every avatar had to do this in order to be the best avatar and the most unbiased avatar as humanly possible. Imagine if Aang had only knew how the air nomads lived and how they operated, then he would be extremely biased if a situation had came up in which the air nomads were potentially on the offensive or how have you, right? This was extremely important with Avatar Roku, who was of the Fire Nation, the Avatar before Avatar Aang, because say he had just completely agreed with Fire Lord Ozai, then he would be like, yeah, let's take over, let's invade, let's destroy the air nomads, let's invade the Earth Kingdom and things of that nature. Imagine if Avatar Roku had agreed with Fire Lord Ozai, but he didn't. Why? Because he traveled the lands, he met the different cultures, the different nations, and he was like, no, this would not be fair, and this would not be what's needed in order to keep balance amongst the different countries. So another example would be with Avatar Aang, right? We knew very early on that he had his friend, one of his best friends, Bumi, in Omashu, in the Earth Kingdom. So we know that he's traveled to the Earth Kingdom at a very young age, before the age of 12. Same thing happened with the Fire Nation. He said, I have had friends in the Fire Nation. They don't operate like this. And if you remember the time when they went to the Fire Nation, I believe it was when Aang needed to find another firebending master, but they ended up finding a sword master for Sokka instead. If you remember from that, Aang went and enrolled in school, and then they threw a party for everybody at that school. And what did Aang do? Aang began showing the Fire Nation kids, different ceremonial and traditional dances of the Fire Nation, meaning Aang had to have been in the Fire Nation on that island for an extended period of time to not only learn the dances, but remember them over 100 years. So he has, I don't remember if he ever went to the Water Tribe or anything of that nature, but regardless of that, Aang traveled well before he was an Avatar. So you have to keep that in mind, that Avatars have to go on the Avatar journey, and it's not just about mastering the elements. One of my reasons that I have with Avatar Korra is that it's just more than just simply mastering the elements. It's also about understanding and getting cultural experience, world experience, and developing and honing your skills. But yes, it also incorporates learning the elements as well. But that is chapter 3, ladies and gentlemen. If you made it to the end, thank you for rocking with me. If you are new, go plus ultra and smash that subscribe button. It lets me know that you rock with the content that I put out on this channel. Like the video, share the video, comment on the video, all that fancy stuff. And like always, keep it safe and wrap it tight. I'm out.
The Beamer, you want to go for it? Nice choice.
Can't wait to try her out.
I know some people at the showdown. See about getting you a race. Gives me a chance to make sure she's working perfectly. What do you say?
Sounds good.